Chinese Communist Party, CCP, the communications networks in the United States and around the world. The CCP poses a significant threat to American security and economic leadership. One significant area where we see this is in the communications sector. China is aggressively trying to overtake the United States as the global leader in communications and technology. They export their heavily subsidized equipment to developing countries, try to dominate international standard forums, and can exploit security vulnerabilities in equipment to spy on Americans and disrupt our networks. As Americans increasingly rely on connectivity in everyday life, the security of the equipment they use becomes paramount. Given the known vulnerabilities in many technologies produced by companies with ties to the CCP, it is imperative to take steps to mitigate the widespread availability of this equipment. For years, this subcommittee has prioritized addressing the threat posed by the CCP. This includes passing the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act, which created a program to rip and replace Huawei and ZTE equipment from our networks. I am frustrated, however, that we still have not found a way to fully fund this program. Today's markup builds on our bipartisan tradition with 4 important pieces of legislation. The first bill we are considering is H.R. 2864, the Countering CCP Drone Act, which would add equipment produced by DJI Technologies to the FCC's covered list, effectively banning it from the United States. DJI is another company that has ties to the CCP, making their products a significant threat to our national security. We will also consider H.R. 820, the Foreign Adversaries Communications Transparency Act, which will require the FCC to annually publish a list of entities with ties to China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia that hold an FCC license or authorization. Next, we will consider H.R. 1513, the Future Networks Act, introduced by the ranking member, the gentlelady from California, which will require the FCC to establish a 6G task force made up of both the public and private sectors to develop a report on the standards development process and possible uses of 6th generation technology. Finally, I'm pleased to lead H.R. 7589, the Routers Act. This legislation will require NTIA to study whether certain routers and modems produced by companies with ties to our adversaries pose an unacceptable risk to our national security. Chinese state-sponsored companies make unsecured routers that are easily susceptible to cyber attacks and serve as entry points for bad actors into consumers' homes, networks, and devices. Fortunately, the U.S. has taken strong steps to keep Huawei and ZTE out of our homes and networks, and I'm proud that this bill builds on those efforts. I'd like to thank the members of the subcommittee for their work on these bills, and I'm pleased that we're able to move forward on this legislation today. And with that, I will yield back, and I now recognize the gentlelady from California's 7th District, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that this committee is continuing its important work to reinforce U.S. leadership while securing existing technologies against bad actors. Competition in the global tech marketplace has never been higher, nor its consequences more significant. From semiconductors to next-generation communications networks, American leadership is both an economic and national security imperative. I know firsthand from my work on the CHIPS Act that our economy and military are at their strongest when America is at the cutting edge of innovation. For years, America was home to the most advanced semiconductor design and manufacturing processes in the market. That ensured our military had access to technology generations ahead of our adversaries, making America's armed services the most sophisticated in the world. But when we fall behind, as was the case in semiconductors, our economy slows and military readiness is threatened. Our communications networks are no different. We must ensure the United States remains the vanguard of innovation in the face of increased global competition. Thankfully, this committee has had a strong track record of boosting American innovation through legislation like we're considering today. I'm glad to see my Future Networks Act on the agenda. For the United States to stay ahead of the rest of the world in wireless communications, we need to be taking steps to prepare for the next generation of networks. Because the economic and national security stakes in the global race to 6G couldn't be higher. As China leans on Huawei and other companies to advance its interests in international standard-setting bodies, the U.S. needs to stay vigilant and engaged. This bill would assemble our nation's brightest minds from industry, government, and academia on a 6G task force. The task force will provide vital insights on the development of 6G and these strategically important standards bodies. This bipartisan bill would make a crucial down payment on American leadership by ensuring the U.S. is taking the necessary steps to lead. I'm also glad to see Chairman Latta's Routers Act being advanced today. This bill would help eliminate routers and modems produced by our foreign adversaries from operating on U.S. networks. Routers and modems process huge amounts of America's personal data, and if insecure, they provide a perfect backdoor for our foreign adversaries to exploit. This bill is a powerful step toward securing our digital ecosystem. We'll also be considering legislation to combat the influence of adversarial governments across the technological landscape. Taken together, these bills will both address existing vulnerabilities while preventing new weak links in crucial technologies. I'm glad to be moving these bills to the full committee and eventually the floor. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. The gentlelady yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Washington, the chair of the full committee, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairman Latta. Today, we are marking up 4 important pieces of legislation that will secure communications networks from threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party and promote U.S. technological leadership. I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for their work on these bills. China poses a significant threat to the security of our communications networks. Companies with ties to the CCP operate in an environment tightly intertwined with the Chinese government, raising serious concerns about the level of influence and potential for exploitation by the CCP. Under China's 2017 National Intelligence Law, these companies are required to support, provide assistance to, and cooperate with China's national intelligence work wherever they operate, which could jeopardize equipment used in American communications networks. Relying on these technologies comes with significant risk to our national security. This isn't the first time we've worked to address these threats. In 2020, we passed the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act to remove Huawei and ZTE entirely from our networks. Yet more work is needed to thoroughly address these threats. Vulnerability in consumer equipment, such as routers and drones, could be exploited by adversaries to spy on the public. That's why I'm pleased that we're marking up Chairman Latta's Routers Act, which would direct the National Telecommunications and Information Administration to study what consumer routers and modems pose security risk. We're also considering legislation from Ms. Stefanik to add the drone manufacturer DJI, which also has ties to the CCP, to the Federal Communications Commission's covered list, which would prevent these drones from operating in the United States. We should also know when CCP influence companies have communications licenses in the United States, which is why today we're considering H.R. 2864. This transparency is important to understanding which adversaries are present in our communications networks, as well as the threat they pose. Finally, we're marking up Ms. Matsui's future network to develop a report on 6th-generation wireless technology. Carriers are deploying 5G across the country, and we must look to the future and make sure we are leading the development of these emerging technologies. This task force will ensure that the U.S., both industry and government, are doing what is needed to cement our leadership in 6G and win the future. The United States faces exceedingly complex threats from China and other adversaries that require a comprehensive and coordinated response. This response must include efforts to secure critical supply chains, protect our allies, strengthen cybersecurity defenses, and engage in strategic competition with China in key technologies. Failure to address these challenges not only jeopardizes our economic competitiveness and national security, but also risk ceding ground to an adversarial power intent on reshaping the global order in its favor. That's why I'm proud of the impressive bills on today's agenda, which address these issues and continue the bipartisan tradition of the E&C committee. I want to thank the sponsors and the staff for their hard work, and I look forward to moving these bills to full committee. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey, the ranking member of the full committee, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Latta. Today, the subcommittee will consider 4 bills, many of which are bipartisan, to protect Americans and our vital communications networks from foreign adversaries and bad actors. And our communication networks play an essential role across almost every sector of our economy and touch many parts of Americans' daily lives. Robust networks allow Americans to have easier access to doctors, teachers, and job opportunities. They're also vital to our nation's critical infrastructure, public safety systems, supply chains, and government functions. As technology advances, the role they play will only become greater. But this growing reach has made our communications networks and the devices that run on them targets that face constant threats from amateur hackers and adversarial nations. Fortunately, this committee has a robust history of protecting America's networks from security threats, while also allowing our country to remain a global leader in communications technology. So I look forward to continuing this work by advancing the 4 bills before us today. These bills will protect Americans and our communications networks from threats in our rapidly evolving technological landscape. They will also ensure that the most advanced wireless technologies are designed to be safe and secure. And the bills include H.R. 1513, the Future Networks Act, led by Subcommittee Ranking Member Matsui. This bill will establish a task force at the FCC to study 6th generation or 6G technologies and identify potential supply chain and cybersecurity vulnerabilities. As the next generation of technology is developed, we must understand the potential risks to best protect our networks and strengthen the technology's design. And finally, as we discuss the importance of securing our communications networks, it's also critical that we continue to ensure all Americans have access to high-speed, reliable, and affordable internet service. Closing the digital divide is essential because broadband is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. Internet connectivity is needed so everyone gets a fair chance to connect to the internet and participate in today's economy. Eliminating the gaps will ensure that all communities can grow their economies for the future and will allow us to continue to lead the world in technological innovation. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, committee Democrats made historic investments in programs that will help close the digital divide and connect every American to modern opportunities and prosperity. Unfortunately, the Affordable Connectivity Program is in danger of running out of funding within the next couple of months. This program has been a game changer, helping more than 23 million American households across every state and every congressional district bring affordable internet access to their homes. Without congressional action, these families will lose access to education and economic opportunities, modern health care, and a lot more. So I'm ready to work with my Republican colleagues to pass Representative Clark's bipartisan Affordable Connectivity Program Extension Act to extend funding for this program. We must act quickly to pass this legislation so we can keep our constituents and all American families connected. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, thank you very much. The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The chair reminds members that pursuant to committee rules, all members' opening statements will be made part of the record. Are there any further opening statements? Seeing none. The chair calls up H.R. 2864 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 2864, a bill to amend the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act of 2019 to provide
Without
for
objection,
the
the
addition.
first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point so ordered. Does anyone seek recognition on the bill? Are there any bipartisan amendments? Are there any other amendments? What purpose does the gentleman from the Texas 11th District seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute at the desk.
Thank you. The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 2864, offered by Mr. Pfluger of Texas. Strike all after the enacting clause and insert
Thank you
the
very,
following.
without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentleman from the Texas 11th District is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll keep this very brief. Drones from CCP-aligned companies are a serious threat, and these drones can collect a significant amount of data and images as they fly over. Like all CCP organizations, DJI is subject to China's national intelligence laws, which requires companies to support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence efforts. If requested, DJI would be forced to turn over any American data they collect. That's why we must prevent the FCC from authorizing these drones from operating inside the United States. Removing these drones is essential for our national security, and I'm proud to support this legislation, and my amendment is very simple. It ensures that we are comprehensive in banning all technology produced by DJI, including software. Any technology produced by our adversaries is a vulnerability, so we need to ensure that we address the entire threat. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. It has bipartisan support and support from the sponsors, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion on the amendment, the vote occurs on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Is there any further discussion on the amended bill? Seeing none, does the ranking member ask for a recorded vote? No. Okay. The question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 2864 as amended to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill is agreed to. A recorded vote is requested, I heard? Oh, I thought,
No.
oh, no. No, okay. A recorded vote is requested. The clerk will take the roll.
Bilirakis. Wahlberg. Wahlberg votes aye. Carter. Dunn. Curtis. Joyce. Joyce votes aye. Weber. Weber votes aye. Allen. Allen votes aye. Balderson. Balderson votes aye. Fulcher. Fulcher votes aye. Pfluger. Pfluger votes aye. Harshbarger. Harshbarger votes aye. Kamick. Obernolte. Chair Latta.
Aye.
Chair Latta votes aye. Matsui.
Aye.
Matsui votes aye. Clark. VC. Soto. Soto votes aye. Eshu. Cardenas. Craig. Craig votes aye. Fletcher. Fletcher votes aye. Dingle. Dingle votes aye. Custer. Custer votes aye. Kelly. Kelly votes aye. Pallone. Pallone votes aye. Chair Rogers. Chair Rogers votes aye. Mr. Carter is not recorded. Carter votes aye. Mr. Bilirakis is not recorded. Bilirakis votes aye.
Are there any other members wishing to be recorded?
Mr. VC is not recorded. VC votes aye.
Are there any other members wishing to be recorded? Seeing none, the clerk will report the result.
Chair Latta, on that vote, there were 21 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you. The ayes have it. The bill is agreed to and will be forwarded on to the full committee. Chair now calls up H.R. 820 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 820, a bill to direct the Federal Communications Commission to publish a list of entities that hold authorizations, licenses, or other grants of
Without
authority.
objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Does anyone seek recognition on the bill? Are there any bipartisan amendments? The gentleman from Georgia has an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report.
An amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 820 offered by Mr. Allen of Georgia. Strike all after the enacting clause.
Without objection,
insert.
the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentleman from Georgia's 12th District is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an amendment in the nature of a substitute of H.R. 820, the Foreign Adversary Communications Transparency Act. Mr. Chairman, this is a very important bill. We have adversaries that are committed to overtaking our economic leadership, which threaten our national security. Some have licenses and different authorizations from the Federal Communications Commission, which they can use to broadcast their propaganda, interfere with our communication networks, or even spy on Americans. We need to know which foreign adversaries have these licenses and authorizations, which is why I am proud to support this legislation from Mrs. Stefanik that would require the FCC to publish a list of these countries. My amendment would incorporate technical assistance from the FCC and others to ensure that this bill can be implemented according to its intent. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. It has the support from both the majority and the minority, as well as the sponsors of the legislation. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. If there's no further discussion on the amendment, the vote occurs on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Is there any further discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, the question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 820 to the full committee, and a request is for a recorded vote. The clerk will take the roll.
Bilirakis. Wahlberg. Wahlberg votes aye. Carter. Carter votes aye. Dunn. Curtis. Joyce. Joyce votes aye. Weber. Weber votes aye. Allen. Allen votes aye. Balderson. Balderson votes aye. Fulcher. Fulcher votes aye. Pfluger. Pfluger votes aye. Harshbarger. Harshbarger votes aye. Kamick. Obernolte. Chair Latta.
Aye.
Chair Latta votes aye. Matsui.
Aye.
Matsui votes aye. Clark. VC. VC votes aye. Soto. Soto votes aye. Eshu. Cardenas. Cardenas votes aye. Craig. Craig votes aye. Fletcher. Fletcher votes aye. Dingle. Dingle votes aye. Custer. Custer votes aye. Kelly. Kelly votes aye. Pallone. Pallone votes aye. Chair Rogers. Chair Rogers votes aye.
Are there any members wishing to have their vote recorded? The gentleman from Florida?
Bilirakis votes aye.
Are there any other members wishing to be recorded? Hearing none, the clerk will report the result.
Chair Latta, on that vote, there were 22 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you. The bill as amended is agreed to and will be reported to the full committee. And the chair now calls up H.R. 1513 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 1513, a bill to direct the Federal Communications Commission to establish a task force to be known as the 6P
Thank you. Without
Task.
objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Does anyone seek recognition on the bill? For what purpose, gentlelady, the ranking member of the subcommittee, seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized to strike the last word for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said in my opening statement, the race to 6G isn't just about faster phones. It's about national security, the economy, and America's standing on the international stage. If we lead, this global technology will be based on our values, democracy, open markets, and transparency. But if we fall behind, America's foreign adversaries will have a new venue to expand their reach. That means less openness and more top-down control. More and more, this fight is being fought in global standard-setting bodies that write the rules of the road for 6G. These entities decide which technologies will be adopted and given the global scale needed to succeed. I'm concerned that other countries appreciate these stakes and are taking action. If the United States doesn't get off the sidelines, we could very well lose this race. That's why I'm so glad to see this bipartisan bill moving forward today. It will ensure our brightest minds in industry, government, and academia are advising the U.S. on the strategically vital development of 6G. By convening a 6G task force, I'm confident we'll be in a better position to leverage America's strengths to our advantage. That means encouraging competition, not trying to stifle it, demanding transparency, and the free flow of information. Because if we wait, China, Russia, and others will be more than happy to fill the void. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm hopeful that the full Energy and Commerce Committee can report this bill to the floor soon. And with that, I yield back the balance.
Will the gentlelady yield
Yes.
over here on this side?
Oh, I certainly yield to the chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you for carrying this bill, and I agree with your words. I just wanted to point out there's some wonderful kids sitting in the back row here watching this hearing. And what I'd like to ask of them is, if you young people, when you go back to wherever part of the country you came to visit, welcome to your capital, by the way, can you please tell them we were in a committee hearing and we couldn't tell the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats because they were all in agreement. Please share that fact. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. I yield back.
Okay. The gentlelady yields back. Is there anyone else seeking recognition on the bill? Oh, for what purpose does the gentlelady from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I move to strike the last word.
Lady is recognized to strike the last word for 5 minutes.
As a co-chair of the Congressional 5G and Beyond Caucus, it's imperative that we take decisive action to lead in setting wireless standards and promoting the adoption of advanced wireless technologies, both at home and abroad. Ranking Member Matsui's Future Uses of Technology Upholding Reliable and Enhancing Networks Act, or Future Networks Act, will establish a 6G task force, which is a crucial step in competing against China, securing our supply chains, and facilitating the deployment of wireless services in a more efficient and cost-effective manner. This legislation is also necessary to ensure American leadership in advanced wireless technologies. By directing the FCC to convene a 6G task force made up of public and private sector stakeholders, this legislation recognizes the role wireless technology plays in connecting our communities, driving economic growth, bolstering national security, and fostering innovation. With China vying for dominance in the telecommunications sector, and we will never cede our leadership, we must continue to look towards the future to maintain our leadership position. Additionally, I'm hopeful this 6G task force will explore key aspects of deploying this technology. Laying the groundwork now will enhance cybersecurity measures, which we need, and better protect American interests in an increasingly interconnected world. The United States is a worldwide leader in innovative wireless technologies, and we must take proactive efforts to keep our competitive edge. We must stay ahead of the curve and ensure that our networks remain at the forefront of global innovation. Supporting 6G wireless technology will help ensure we continue to lead in this development, and that is why I am proud to support the Future Networks Act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady, do you claim the lady's time or you? Okay. Does anyone else seek recognition on the bill? Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes. Strike the last word.
Thank you, Chairman. On April 3rd, 2019, we had the countrywide rollout of 5G. And when you think about that date, it was just less than a year later that we faced the biggest pandemic in 100 years. Think about how having 5G ready helped us prepare as we're using our cell phones to help with healthcare, with Zoom calls, with business, with education. And we rolled it out in a way that was safe for our airlines and airports like Orlando International Airport. And so I'm excited to be able to vote for the Future Networks Act to help us get to 6G. And this FCC task force will be absolutely critical. When you look at the kind of power it's going to take to utilize artificial intelligence, streaming, telemedicine, and other technologies on our cell phone, it's going to be absolutely critical that we get to 6G sooner rather than later. And it's important for private sector folks to come together, industry experts, members of the public, along with the FCC to come up with rules of the road. We lead the free world. We need to lead the communications of the free world, including with 6G. And so this is critical that we are proactive. Other bills on the agenda today are going to help protect Americans and maintain our competitive edge against economic rivals like China. We don't know what the future will bring. Hopefully not another pandemic on the horizon, but there are challenges both known and unknown ahead. And so getting 6G in order and ready for the challenges of the future are absolutely critical. And I applaud Representative Matsui on this great bill today. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Are there any other members wishing to seek recognition on the bill? Are there any bipartisan amendments? Are there any other amendments? Seeing none, question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 1513 to the full committee, and a requested roll call vote, a recorded vote is requested. The clerk will take the roll.
Bilirakis. Bilirakis votes aye. Wahlberg. Wahlberg votes aye. Carter. Carter votes aye. Dunn. Curtis. Curtis votes aye. Joyce. Joyce votes aye. Weber. Weber votes aye. Allen. Allen votes aye. Balderson. Balderson votes aye. Fulcher. Fulcher votes aye. Pfluger. Pfluger votes aye. Harshbarger. Harshbarger votes aye. Kamick. Obernolte. Chair Latta.
Aye.
Chair Latta votes aye. Matsui.
Aye.
Matsui votes aye. Clark. Vesey. Vesey votes aye. Soto. Soto votes aye. Eshu. Cardenas. Cardenas votes aye. Craig. Craig votes aye. Fletcher. Fletcher votes aye. Dingle. Dingle votes aye. Custer. Custer votes aye. Kelly. Kelly votes aye. Pallone. Pallone votes aye. Chair Rogers. Chair Rogers votes aye.
Are there any other members wishing to have their vote recorded? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Chair Latta, on that vote, there were 23 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you very much. The ayes have it, and the bill is agreed to. The chair calls up H.R. 7589 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 7589, a bill to direct the Secretary of Commerce, acting through the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Communications and
Thank
Information.
you. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any time, so ordered. Does anyone seek recognition on the bill? Are there any bipartisan amendments on the bill? Are there any other amendments? Seeing none. The question now occurs on forwarding H.R. 7589 to the full committee. A recorded vote is requested. The clerk will take the roll.
Bilirakis. Bilirakis votes aye. Wahlberg. Wahlberg votes aye. Carter. Carter votes aye. Dunn. Curtis. Curtis votes aye. Joyce. Joyce votes aye. Weber. Weber votes aye. Allen. Allen votes aye. Balderson. Balderson votes aye. Fulcher. Fulcher votes aye. Pfluger. Pfluger votes aye. Harshbarger. Harshbarger votes aye. Kamick. Obernolte. Chair Latta.
Aye.
Chair Latta votes aye. Matsui.
Aye.
Matsui votes aye. Clark. Vesey. Vesey votes aye. Soto. Soto votes aye. Eshu. Cardenas. Craig. Craig votes aye. Fletcher. Fletcher votes aye. Dingle. Dingle votes aye. Custer. Custer votes aye. Kelly. Kelly votes aye. Pallone. Pallone votes aye. Chair Rogers. Chair Rogers votes aye.
How's the gentleman from California recorded?
Mr. Cardenas is not recorded. Cardenas votes aye.
Are there any other members wishing to record their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Chair Latta, on that vote, there were 23 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you very much. The ayes have it, and the bill is agreed to. Without objection, staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the legislation approved by the subcommittee today. So ordered. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.